All right. In this video module, we're going to talk about the physical act of wound packing. It's important to identify the wound and determine that wound packing is necessary to achieve hemorrhage control of that area. When we see the wound patterns laid out in front of us, we see a narrow wound track and we see a larger wound track. The goal of wound packing is to apply direct pressure at the source of bleeding inside the body. If the wound channel is too narrow or too small to get a finger in, consider using a blunt tipped applicator of some sort to apply direct pressure and then put that gauze inside the wound. All the similar traits of wound packing are exactly the same, but rather than using my finger, I'll use a blunt tipped applicator to do so. So let's show on a system where it is easier to use our finger and see the process of wound packing. As we can see here, we've identified a wound that has been bleeding or has arterial bleeding coming from it. The goal is to apply that direct pressure inside the body. Initially, what we need to do is verify that there's nothing sharp, dangerous that's going to hurt me, poke me, or stick me in that wound channel, whether it's bone fragmentations, fragmentation from a jacket, or other sharp objects inside. If there is, again, go back to that blunt-tipped applicator to safely place the gauze inside the wound cavity. If you've determined that it is safe to place your finger inside the wound, go ahead and do so and feel for what we call a pulsatile mass. That's going to be the damaged vessel pressing or spraying against your finger. If you are wound packing distal to a tourniquet, you will still feel the smooth muscle of that artery attempting to do its job. It'll feel like a wiggly gummy worm. Press that against the nearest, hardest, firmest object you can inside the body to maintain that direct pressure. From there, we're going to begin to wound pack. Understand that there are different products that we can wound pack with. We can wound pack with standard cotton gauze. The use of standard cotton gauze will apply direct pressure inside the body and allow the body's natural clotting factors to work. That will take roughly 10 to 15 minutes. Wound packing with a hemostatic gauze places, in this case, kaolin inside the body and promotes the body's natural clotting factors. It will take roughly between 90 seconds to 3 minutes for the same hemorrhage control to be achieved. Once you have decided which package to use, make sure that you open the package up. Once the package is opened, it is important to note that we want to keep the contents of this package dry. If we get the contents of this package wet, it will disperse the active ingredient prior to entering the wound channel. From there, I'm going to introduce the gauze into the wound cavity. If I can place both fingers inside the wound, it is critical to maintain direct pressure and overlay that gauze on top of it, while always maintaining that physical pressure at the source of bleeding. If I cannot apply both fingers inside the wound track, using one is an acceptable method to get the gauze inside the wound. As I do this, I want to make sure I can either use a lift and tuck method, which you see me doing right now, or we can use a replace method. The replace method comes when I place the other finger inside the hole, just like so, find the direct pressure site, remove my other finger, and come back through. I personally prefer the lift and tuck method. That way my finger remains in constant contact with the damaged vessel. As I continue to do this now, we'll go at real speed. My goal is to apply this gauze across the entire wound cavity, filling it up completely with gauze. The reason I want to do that is if there's any wound channels that are not completely captured with this gauze, that will allow the blood to come up from the peripheral and continue to rebleed. Always maintaining this pressure as we go. You can see that I'm building this mound and building this wound up, filling this wound up with gauze. As I continue to do so, I'm moving my finger out of the way because the gauze is replacing it as the device to create that direct pressure. Once this is all done, I'll transition to using my thumbs to ensure that all of the little nooks and crannies in here have gauze in it. Once I've packed this completely with gauze and I can fit no more gauze into the hole, I need to make sure that I take whatever is remaining and mount it up on top. As you can see here, I don't have a lot of product left to create that mound. I can use standard Kerlix or another type of product to create that mound on top and apply 5 pounds per square inch of direct pressure digitally over the source of bleeding for 3 minutes. Once that 3 minutes has been achieved, I can use a pressure dressing, Israeli bandage, or other standard emergency trauma dressing to hold my wound pack in place. Again, that is assuming that you're using a hemostatic gauze. Use of a non-hemostatic gauze to wound pack will require direct pressure for 10 to 15 minutes.